Kingston Grand Slam track is in the books. 3 days of crazy action. Now, I'm going to give y'all just 5 highlights from me from this past weekend. And then, of course, in the next couple days, I'm going to be talking about, more in-depth, recaps and more in-depth kind of analysis and thoughts. But before I get to it, definitely go to Citius Mag. We just finished recording our day 3 recap. We went in depth with, the races and the entire day. Check out the previous days as well from day 1, day 2, and of course day 3. We got y'all over in Citius Mag. And of course, go to Instagram as well. We got all the results, all the things that y'all need over there. Now, I really did love Grand Slam track. I really did love this weekend. Like I said in my previous video, things started to, took a little bit to warm up on that first day, and I honestly was a little bit nervous. Wasn't too many fans in the crowd, but as the night went on from day 1, I thought it was actually really good. Once day 2 came, day 2 to me, I don't know, I want to say exceeded expectations, but it definitely was amazing. And then day 3 was just as good. Even despite, the crowd, et cetera, wasn't as large, I thought it was just as good. So definitely surpassed my expectations in terms of what I thought could occur here in Kingston. On top of that, I think the races really did, show up for me. I thought that we saw some great competition. We saw some great head-to-heads, and it was throughout the entire week. Whether it was the men's 100-meter dash on Friday with Kenny B versus Oblique Seville, whether it was on Saturday with the women's 400, with Gabby Thomas, Sawi Nasser, Marlita Paulino, the insanely fast, 400-meter race there. Whether it was today in the 200 where we saw Melissa Jefferson, Jenna Prandini, Jason Sears, all of them going head-to-head in that 200. Yes, ignore the times. I don't think the times matter too much for the most part, outside of maybe, Sawi Nasser. We saw some, Chris Bailey in that 400. But I think the competition really shined here. And even in the 100-meter dash for the hurdlers, where we saw Danielle Williams get the win, over a strong hurdle field, but she is, one of the faster, 100-meter sprinters. Well, I don't know if on paper she's one of the faster, but that competitive spirit, along with Akira Nugent in second, that was a good moment where, Jamaica, they really came alive for that moment. You also saw the men's 100-meter dash for the hurdlers. You had no idea what was going to come of that. Of course, Omar McLeod is on paper the fastest 100-meter sprinter, but you saw Sasha Zoya, he got the win, and he did this karate chop jump or whatever it was. You also saw Dylan Beard. He was able to, come away second place overall. So we saw some great competition and great races that I think truly did deliver on the spirit of what Grand Slam track is looking forward to, or kind of has been looking forward to implementing and injecting into the track and field community. Again, this is the end of the day 3, so I'm kind of all over my words. And yeah, shout out to just all the athletes for coming out here and competing. The other thing that was really interesting is I got a chance to sit down with a lot of fans. Shout out to all of y'all if you're watching. I'm going to be doing, creating a video off of that, but was able to sit down with fans and, talk about the experience that they had. Most of the fans actually said that this was an amazing meet for various different reasons. Now, there are various criticisms that some people did say and some things to be improved upon, but I think this is a really, it did resonate with the fans here in Jamaica. It really did. The other thing that's interesting that I've heard from a few athletes who I was speaking to was the idea of, could this one day replace the World Championships or the Olympic Games? Most of them, the few that I did ask, and that were asked that, other reporters, shout out to them, were asking, some of them did say that the Olympics maybe should stay, but potentially the World Championships could be replaced, right? Where this becomes maybe more important than the World Champs, or at least kind of holds equal importance, at least during the regular season, as a World Championships. And I think that's maybe one of the goals of Grand Slam track. Of course, they want to be able to, capture the same essence and the same excitement and the same competition that you would see at a Worlds or Olympics. But I think they also want to be able to capture the same importance and the same level of, the level of importance, again, I don't know, my words here, that, it has on the calendar for these athletes. And I think it's growing towards that. A lot of these athletes were talking about how they were strategically competing in these races to make sure that they can maximize their amount of money. Where you saw someone like, Gabby Thomas speaking about, I knew that what I had to do mid-race to be able to get that $100,000. Or someone like, Grant Fisher was also talking about his strategy in the 3K, I think that today, to be able to make sure that he can win the entire Grand Slam, despite him not winning the actual race. Those things do come into play. In the men's 110, 100-meter dash double, where you saw Dylan Beer, Cordell Tinch. They were ecstatic despite not winning the actual race, but they knew they just made a ton of money in Grand Slam track. So these things I think are really, really important. And as year 2, 5 years go on, I think that it can continue to develop a lot more importance and, hold a special place in track and field where, okay, world championships, Grand Slam track, athletes are prioritizing both of them equally throughout the entire year. So that's really, really interesting, and I think it'll be something to look forward to. The other thing I find pretty interesting is now, as we move on from Kingston and they head over to Miramar, I think there's going to be a lot of growth there, and I think there's going to be a lot more success that'll come from there. Someone like Michael Johnson, we got a chance to speak with him for like 10 minutes or so. Check the video out on the City Smack podcast or City Smack YouTube. And, he was talking about how there's tons of things to learn. He definitely acknowledges that this was not perfect, right? This was not a perfect competition. This was not a perfect, event. Nothing's going to be perfect, but he did see a lot of success. I saw a lot of success. Fans saw a lot of success, and there's things to improve upon. So I do think that when they go into Miami, which does of course have a smaller venue, which does of course, have more of an intimate crowd setting. I think it's like 5,000 people. I think that's going to allow for better presentation, better showcasing of how the meet actually goes. That's something that's going to be really, really important, and I think they'll be able to capitalize on in Miami, and then as they go on, further in Philly, in LA, and all of that. So a couple different great things that did come of the meet. And it's kind of crazy to me how these athletes walked away with so much money. And I do think that it's going to continue to shift the landscape of how, track and field athletes approach track and field, and then how, other meets approach track and field, how organizations and businesses and everything kind of approaches track and field. I don't think we're going to see a massive change overnight, but at this point, you're looking at certain athletes who didn't get a chance to compete here, and they're like, man, I missed out on XYZ amount of money. I missed out on something that could be at minimum, you make $12,000 minimum. If you're a challenger who's finishing in last place, you make $12,000, right? $10K, and then you get the $2,000 appearance fee, minimum. Right? So I think that's a big, big thing that's going to continue to push the pace of track and field, push the pace of what athletes think of the sport, push, the limits of what these organizations, whether it's World Athletics, whether it's the Diamond League or whoever truly thinks of the sport. And I think it's going to be a net positive overall. That's something that's very, very big, and we'll, hopefully see more progression in that realm, across the board. So a couple things that I found to be really, really interesting. There was another thing I was really thinking about, the other thing, yes. So this is gonna come out when I talk about like the fans. The point system. Point system was interesting because I feel like there's two sides here. One, I think the points may be kind of tricky. A lot of the fans I spoke to, they did say that either the points were kind of confusing to follow, or they said that they just didn't even follow the points because they were just interested in seeing the athletes in the competition. So, it's kind of interesting there. I do think as meets go on, right, as we go month to month from Jamaica to Miami to Philly to LA, people are going to get more accustomed with understanding how the point system works, understanding how it's going to lead to athletes earning more money depending on where their standings are. And then eventually, I think fans will catch on, and then, everyone else is going to be able to catch on. Me and Coach Rob are probably going to do a recap. I do think we need to maybe increase the stakes. I know I'm diving into like my thoughts of like what to change, et cetera, but I think there's some things to improve upon. But overall, I think this was a huge success. For something completely brand new, this was a huge, huge success for a Grand Slam track. I have my criticisms, we gonna see, but let me know what you think about the first Grand Slam track. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.